Welcome back. Now, according to the Actuarial Society of South Africa, a staggering 75% of those who made withdrawals from the two-part retirement system this tax year are repeat claimants. The organization has found that retirement members are taking all they can as soon as they can, but also warned that careful consideration must be made when withdrawing from your savings pot, as it will impact your post-retirement life. Natasha Huggett-Henchie, consulting actuary and member of the Actuarial Society of South Africa's Retirement Matters Committee, joins us with greater perspective on this. Natasha, thanks so much for your time this afternoon. I guess this figure really shocking and I'm sure really concerning. Does this just reflect the kind of circumstances households are under, the kind of circumstances the regular South African citizen is under?
Absolutely, yeah. The complete pressure, that financial pressure that South Africans are under. And possibly, I mean, there might be a little element in that often, you know, I suppose a pension or provident fund is a bit of a grudge purchase. And so, you know, you're forced to belong. So people are kind of, now that they can take money, there is an element of people maybe just taking money if they can. Mm-hmm. But yeah, definitely, I think the financial pressure is the dominant force.
All right, then tell us, what are people using these funds for? You mentioned that there hasn't been a significant decrease in bank loans, and retailers also haven't experienced a significant surge in sales.
So look, I think there was, I mean, there obviously was, but it wasn't, you know, to the extent. So we do think that there's possibly, you know, the informal lending market that has benefited the most, people kind of clearing their loan shark kind of debts as well. Yeah, so it definitely has kind of dissipated into the economy. We can't see, you know, specific industries. And, yeah, a lot of the surveys have also just said people, you know, really it's clearing debts, settling bonds, yeah, anything that they can do to kind of get on top of their financial circumstances.
And just ease the burden. In terms of demographics then, Natasha, what sort of trends have you come across, particularly when it comes to age?
So it definitely is the younger people that are withdrawing. So kind of your 35 to 50-year-olds. So you need to have, you know, your 20-year-olds don't have too much in the system yet. So, but it's, you know, the 50 and 55-year-olds and above are not withdrawing because they're much more focused on their future retirement. So it's those people that are trapped with bonds and school fees and, you know, all of those things that are really making the most withdrawals.
But I guess that's also concerning with those 35-year-olds dipping into the two-part system, considering that then they have less time to make up those funds before they retire.
Yes, so funny enough, there's a little bit of a win and lose situation here, because the modeling that we did as the Actuarial Society actually showed that this trade-off of having access to a third of your contributions and being forced to save the other 2/3 of your contributions is actually going to be better off than the current situation where members are leaving their jobs every couple of years and so cashing in 100. So the idea is that if you cash in only a third, at least you've got the 2/3. But certainly best advice is to, you know, reinvest. If you do cash in, you know, make those additional contributions, top up again, so that you can compensate for what you've taken out.
All right. And how much are people withdrawing the second time around? I can imagine that from the first time to the second time, there's not much left to withdraw, also after all the tax and everything.
That's right. So the first time round, we all got this kind of bonsella of you could get 10% up to a maximum of 30,000. So the majority of people got about 30,000, and so they withdrew. And, you know, if they drew in September, October, they got 30, or maybe like their 1 or 2 months contributions. So essentially what they're able to withdraw now in March, April, May is really just their new contributions, and actually just a third of their new contributions since you know, 1st of September, since they made their last withdrawal. So we're seeing, you know, different administrators are different, but, you know, the average of the first withdrawals were probably 18,000, some up to 20,000. And we're now seeing average withdrawals of 4,000, 5,000, 6,000.
Oh, wow.
You know, so it definitely is, you know, they're just taking what they can.
It also does seem like citizens are taking out this money to just supplement for their income to pay off expenses. Yeah.
It is just living. I think, yeah, the cost of living's gone up, petrol, electricity, you name it. We're all just having to pay that much more and to stay afloat. And I think, unfortunately, salaries haven't necessarily kept pace with the cost of living.
And there also seems to be some confusion when it comes to tax implications, Natasha. Do people understand how it works?
I don't know that they do. And the key is that you get taxed at your marginal rate. So which means if you're in the 18% tax bracket, you're going to get 18% tax if you're in the 21% and so on. But what also happens, and I think what people don't understand, is that it could push you into the next bracket. So in other words, if you took a big withdrawal and you're just below the next tax bracket up, you could suddenly find that you get pushed into the next tax bracket.
Okay.
And of course, the other thing which SARS did, which didn't come up in the article, was that they claimed what they call arrear taxes, IT88s. So in other words, if you owed SARS from a previous tax submission that you hadn't paid, you could have had your full benefit to take it up in tax rather than getting anything out. So I don't think people appreciated the impact. And then obviously the impact of fees as well. I mean, we mentioned that earlier, so I always use the analogy, you kind of put your card into the ATM hoping to get out 5,000 and 4,000 comes out because money's gone in tax and fees, so it's a little bit of a shock to the system.
Yeah. Do you think changes should be made to the tax regulations?
I don't think so. I think that the regulators have been concerned about tax arbitrage.
Okay.
So I think the way it's set up, and we worked with National Treasury and things in the run up to this. So I think it is probably the most reasonable tax situation. I think the changes that are needed in time are for people who are retrenched, because the aspect that we kind of haven't focused on is the 2/3 that stays behind. And the idea is that that's locked away for retirement. But if you are retrenched, in time, that could be a significant portion, and we may need to look at being able to get some access to that in time.
Natasha, thanks so much for your time and sharing those insights. That was Natasha Huggett-Henchie, consulting actuary and member of the Actuarial Society of South Africa's Retirement Matters Committee.